In the heart of Switzerland, nestled between the towering Alps and clear lakes, lived a freedom-loving people who suffered under the cruel rule of a mighty empire. The empire was represented by a harsh and corrupt governor named Albrecht Gessler, sent to govern the valleys with tyranny and oppression. Gessler not only imposed heavy taxes but also sought to humiliate the people and break their pride. Gessler lived in an impenetrable fortress on the shore of Lake Lucerne. One day he devised a plan to demonstrate his absolute control. He ordered that the governor's hat be raised on a tall pole in the town's main square, decreeing that every citizen who passed through the square must bow before the hat as a sign of reverence for its master. This act was seen by the people as an insult to liberty and a symbol of subjugation. Meanwhile, a strong and courageous villager lived in the region, known for his unmatched skill with the bow and arrow, a man named William Tell. Tell was a simple man who loved his wife and sons and cherished the freedom he was born into amidst the mountains. He was not a rebel, but a man who refused to be subdued. One sunny morning, William Tell walked with his young son, Walter, no more than 10 years old, through the main square. Tell saw the hat on the pole and the watching soldiers, but he refused to bow and walked with his head held high, as befits a free man. Gessler's soldiers quickly spotted him, arrested him, and brought him and his son before Governor Gessler, who awaited them with a sneer of pure malice. Gessler loudly declared before the gathered crowd, "You arrogant man! How dare you defy my order and refuse to show reverence to your ruler? Your punishment is death." Tell bravely replied, "My lord, I did not intend to disobey. I simply did not realize that bowing to a hat was mandatory. Have mercy on my ignorance and pardon me." Gessler did not want to kill Tell immediately. He sought to break his spirit and humiliate him publicly. Gessler was well aware of Tell's legendary archery skills. With a cruel laugh, Gessler said, "Very well, William Tell, I shall not kill you. I will grant you one chance to save your life and the life of your son, but it requires an impossible feat to prove your legendary skill." Gessler pointed to young Walter, then declared, "Place an apple atop your son Walter's head. You must then shoot your arrow and pierce the apple without even scratching the boy's head. Succeed, and you are both free. Fail, and I shall execute you both before this crowd." The audience was aghast. Walter began to cry, and the crowd shrieked in horror at the vicious penalty. This was a fate worse than mere death. William Tell approached his son. Walter was trembling with fear, but his father whispered calmly and confidently, "Be strong, my son. Your father's eye will not fail, and his hand knows its way well. Hold still and do not move, ever." Tell then placed the red apple on Walter's head. Tell stepped back to a considerable distance. In that agonizing moment he drew 2 arrows from his quiver, put one in his jacket and the other in his bow, and then aimed. His face was pale, but his hands did not shake. Tell released his arrow. In a moment of complete silence, the arrow flew like lightning, piercing the apple exactly in half. The 2 halves fell to the ground without touching the boy's head. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, celebrating the boy's salvation and the hero's skill. Gessler smiled thinly. Tell's skill was undeniable. However, he had noticed Tell drawing 2 arrows and demanded to know the secret of the second arrow. Gessler asked spitefully, "William Tell, you passed the test, but why did you draw a second arrow? Tell me truthfully why the second arrow." Tell hesitated, then looked at Gessler with eyes burning with anger and freedom, and declared, "O cruel governor! Had the first arrow struck my son's head instead of the apple, I would have shot the second arrow straight into your black heart." Gessler was shocked, and his fury turned to madness. He immediately ordered Tell to be seized and chained, shouting, "I will send you to a dungeon where you will forget the light of the sun and the freedom you love." William Tell was taken to a boat to be imprisoned in the heavily fortified Küsnacht castle. As they crossed the lake, a violent storm erupted, nearly sinking the boat. William Tell was the only one who knew the lake's currents and how to navigate the waves. The soldiers begged Gessler to unchain Tell so he could steer the boat to safety. Gessler reluctantly agreed. Tell skillfully piloted the boat until they reached a rock he knew well, close to the shore. In a sudden move, William Tell leaped from the boat onto the rock, pushed the boat away, and ran, disappearing into the dense forest. Tell realized that justice would not prevail without rebellion. Days later, William Tell ambushed Gessler in a narrow mountain pass. When Gessler and his guards passed, Tell loosed his final arrow, the second arrow he had promised. It struck the tyrant Gessler's heart, ending his life. Gessler's death ignited the Swiss rebellion. The cantons united against the unjust rule, and the people won their freedom thanks to the courage and archery of William Tell, who became an eternal symbol of liberty and sacrifice. The moral and the message. This story teaches us that the value of one's word and vow in the eyes of an honest man is more precious than life itself. The sincere word spoken in the direst of circumstances, like Tell's word about the second arrow, is more powerful and lethal than the weapon itself. Do not fear oppression, for every tyrant meets an end, even if it is at the hands of a simple man who possesses one arrow and a brave heart. And here ends the story of William Tell and the impossible shot.